All right, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a sort of mean curve, which is essentially interpolating between two curves that we have set out. So the scene begins with just two splines, and what we're going to do in Para is create a sort of system or a paraflow that mediates between these two, which we can define the number of points along the spline as well as the number of splines being interpolated between curve 1 and curve 2. Okay, so if something were selected and I were to go to Open Para, it would create a parametric array. We're not interested in making an array, we're interested in making a shape. So with nothing selected in the scene, I will go to Create Parametric Array, and I'll keep this as Create Shape. Um, so the sub-object count is referring to, there's two numbers that we're interested in. As you can see, the third one is grayed out. The first option is the number of points along the spline, and the second one, which is referring to D2. So this is D1, this is D2. D2 is referring to the number of curves that are going to be interpolated between curve A and curve B. We can go back and change this once we've set up our paraflow, but for now, I'll just make that 10, and I'll make the number of vertices at 6. Again, we can go back and change those numbers, but those will just be my sort of default numbers. Um, okay, so the first thing we'll need to do once we're in Para is create two curve controllers. So I will double click on the canvas. I will open my first curve controller, and we'll need two because we're going to need those to, one curve controller is going to be for curve A, and the second curve controller is going to refer to curve B. So I'll go through and label this curve A just to be organized. I'll pick an object. I'll select the spline within the scene. It's now loaded. As you can see here, it says spline 1. Okay, so I'll need to set my curve A to a vector because we're interested in manipulating the position. So I will come up to the None tab, which is the type identifier. I'll left click and adjust that to vector. Once that is changed, I'll highlight the node. Or the controller, and I'll drag down, and then make sure that the derived values are set from position, as we are interested in setting the position. So, like I said before, we're going to need to have um, two curve controllers, one referring to curve A, the second referring to curve B. So I can simply right-click, copy, and then paste. And then I'll just need to set this to curve B. So the first thing I'll do is just adjust the naming convention, and then I'll need to update the spline shape. So select line 1, then I'll select curve B, and now I have both my curves set in Para. Okay, so now that I have my curve set, I'll need something to interpolate between these curves and then feed back into my initial parametric shape. So I'll double click and add a linear controller. And I'll move this over here. Okay, now that we have our linear controller set, which I will quickly relabel, we need to specify the parameters we're interested in. So, like I said, before we are interested in just the position. Also, we're only interested in moving this in one dimension. So that dimension happens to be D2. Here it's labeled 2D. So we'll just deselect 1D and 3D, and then we'll also specify vector. So now it's pretty nicely set up in the sense that we have two options that need to feed in, and then we have two curves that also need that we have by sort of default. So we'll select the curve A controller and plug that in the linear controller, and then we'll take curve B and also plug that in. We'll then take our our linear controller, expand the options, and then connect that to the vector. The vertex. Okay, so now we can highlight our linear controller, which is interpolating between our two sort of default vectors, and then update from there. Okay, so since we have two splines moving in two different directions, we're going to need to adjust one of the splines. So I'll select curve B. I can right-click on the spline shape, then go to my control panel, select spline, highlight the curve, go into the options, and then reverse. After I reverse, I can then come back to para and then update, and now we have our interpolated line work. Okay, so from here we have our lines interpolated, and I can still go back to the original shape and adjust the amount of curves that are being interpolated between curve A and curve B simply by adjusting the number and hitting enter. So I can adjust this or the amount of points along the spline. I can either increase or decrease easily because it's all set up in the Paraflow. So I can also go back into Max itself, select the spline, highlight, go to vertex, manipulate the vertex within Max, and then update as well. So which actually gives you a lot of flexibility within the array. All right, thank you very much for watching.